Guys, Jay here. Welcome to Models Memories Weekly, episode 195. Models Memories is a show about nothing and it's filmed in front of a live studio audience. This is a show where I talk about my painting, modeling, and working experiences from the week. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Jay, you put out 3 videos a week. Ow! Could I possibly have more to say? Well, I do, and here goes. This week, Games Workshop came out with some really good new minis. I might have bought a new wargaming faction, and we got tons and tons of really cool new rules for Warhammer 40,000. But first, I've been playing a lot of Warhammer 40k on some brand spanking new terrain, courtesy of EonsOfBattle.com. For the month of December, we have made The Fall, Buildings Part 1, the easiest way to get a ton of terrain really fast. This set focuses on printable decorations for cardboard, foam core, and Pringles cans buildings. Build out the grimdark militarized fort dripping with details. With a selection of sandbag-laden battlements, barbed wire defenses, armored wall decorations, and noble eagle lookout posts, this set allows for large terrain to be built in record time. And it has printable textures to add detail and decoration to take the terrain to the next level. This is the first of 3 releases that focus on getting a proper 40k board up and running as easily as possible. Games Workshop has an article out now looking at what was the best miniature of 2024, and you can put in your votes now, but man, I think it's a tricky year for best model because there wasn't really like an Angron. I don't think the Lion was this year. Like there wasn't just one big flagship mini that's like, oh yeah, of course that one's like Be'lakor one. But there wasn't like a big awesome mini this year. I guess maybe the Rat King, like the Mega Rat for Skaven. But I don't know, I feel like it could be anything. And these new minis that they just came out with are also really good. If I had to pick a winner for this year, I feel like I'm gonna pick something really lame, but I just personally love it. Like maybe the Kroot Rampagers. Oh wait, was that even this year? That might not have been this year, because I think the Christmas box, it might have been this year. I'm gonna say Kroot was this year. I'm gonna pick Rampagers, which is the way wrong answer, but I just happen to love those miniatures. And speaking of love, we got some new minis from Necromunda. Necromunda is always coming out with absolutely beautiful miniatures. And this article, the mysterious tie on my Coven is here to stalk the Underhive. It's the Japan faction, or it's just a Japan couple of guys, and they're really good. I feel like the paint job is a little bit of a miss. I think the paint job is a little bit bad. I would love to know the prompt that the Games Workshop Heavy Metal paint team gets, because I assume it's something like you have to show off the product in terms of their paints, because their paint, they still do like the base coat shade highlight approach so that all of their minis have one uniform look. I feel like it particularly failed on these models, but they're really good looking models. I might have to buy these. I feel like they'd just be so much fun to paint. They would look so silly in the world of Necromunda. And it's just so fun to me that weeb culture survived 40,000 years into the future. I really like the look. I like that the one model is barefoot. I would not want to go through the underhives of Necromunda barefoot. That seems dangerous, but this person is doing it. I like that the stick has the Aquila eagles on it. I like that it's kind of like jade marble, the actual staff part of it. These models are really fun, really nice. I do kind of wish it was a full faction. I'm sure these are just hireable goons, because in Malifaux, you can just hire random goons. You can kind of hire anything. I've been slowly collecting like every cool Necromunda thing I've seen, because one day I'm gonna do Necromunda. I've played 2 games. It's a really fun game. It's like Kill Team, but way more rules, but the rules are all based around flavor and fun. Like when you're designing your character, you can literally buy like a fresh recruit, just stolen right off the assembly lines. You can get a grizzled veteran, you can get anything in between, and then you pay for their shirt, you pay for what type of armor they wear, whether it's super bad armor or just really bad armor or just like armor, which is also pretty bad, or you can get anything, you can deck your guy out any way you want and then play it. And it's really fun and interesting. And I think these characters would make for some really fun games. I love the samurai sword with the extension cables running to it. It almost looks like it has like a bullet. What's it called? The part that the bullets shoot out of. People will let me know in the comments, but It's a really silly looking sword. It kind of reminds me of, if anybody saw Star Wars Visions, there's a really, really good episode called La Pinocho, and that Star Wars lightsaber might be one of my favorite lightsabers of all time. I mean, number one is Obi-Wan Kenobi's lightsaber from the first Star Wars movie, Star Wars 1977. That's my favorite lightsaber. But number two might be Lop's lightsaber from that. And this kind of gives me vibes of that. It's kind of got the same hilt. And obviously that lightsaber looks like a katana, which is also kind of awesome. Super tangent, but I really, really like it. These models are awesome. They're just fun. There's something new. And speaking of something new, Old World Almanac. And for our next trick, we got some sorcerers or some magicians or whatever the old world takes to do their magical stuff. These guys, I think Games Workshop brought some outside help in for their sculpting, because these guys are weirdly, really, 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 really good. Like the storytelling of these sculpts is amazing. We got the classic magician with these big armed sleeves, but not classically mage sleeves. They're not, it's not Dumbledore style sleeves. It's like old school medieval sleeves. And then his little helper, his little like gnome scribe, has got all of these bundles and books, and then the sword sticking out of the backpack of the little guy matches the movement of the actual character. It's really, really good, and we see that in all of these designs. The forest magician, he looks like he's painted a little bit wall-eyed, which gives him a really, really fun look, but he's got these big, gigantic shoulders built up with big like shoulder pads, and then a pile of leaves, and then these gigantic horns. He's got this kind of messed up staff with a gem on top. His toady is a literal toad, which is a really, really fun detail. And then once again, the little fella, the familiar, is kind of mirroring the pose and the stylings of the wizard. It's really, really nicely done. And then last, we got the necromancer, and he's got these flowing robes, and he's got like feathers and bones that are attached together in some weird ways in an hourglass, because he's a necromancer, and so the hourglass is like the symbol of death. And then his little toady is a little skull guy with wax dripping off of him. It's really, really weirdly nicely done. Like, Games Workshop makes really, really good models, but usually they're kind of standalone, or like there's one kind of artistic vision or one style for the squad or for the singular miniature. It's kind of interesting to see like how uniformly presented all three of these miniatures are. It's weird. It's like, it's an extra couple of layers of thought put into these guys, and it's really, really nicely done. I would love to see some more stuff like this. Maybe it's just because Old World is classic like 80s and 90s Warhammer, and so that weird silliness is allowed to live a little bit closer to the surface than on some of their more modern games like 40K and Age of Sigmar. But yeah, these models I saw them and they're just like, whoa, these don't feel like Games Workshop minis. They feel like something else. They're really, really cool. But speaking of minis that are really, really, really cool, I was looking at one of my favorite games, a little Malifaux, and I saw some new teams that I had never seen before. One of them, I may have just instantly bought the entire faction for. Introducing Tiri of the Fae. In Malifaux, there's a new faction that's kind of steampunk elvy fairy monsters. So Malifaux is set in an alternate universe, turn of the century America. And so a lot of their models are a little bit more steampunk / like Western gunslinger / Victorian punk. But these guys apparently existed before Malifaux was any of that, before humans existed. And they fought many glorious battles. They even predate the Neverborn and Nakima. And what's the one-eyed guy? I forget his name, but he's like the magician or the lore keeper. Euripides and his ice giants. Before any of those guys stepped foot into the twisted world of Malifaux, there was Tiri and the elves and a whole bunch of other stuff that eventually kind of defeated this faction. But the models are so cool. The one model that made me immediately pull the trigger was the First Light, a techie giraffe construct with a little fairy sitting on top. It's one of the most glorious things I have ever seen. And luckily Malifaux makes all of their models in plastic, so this model can actually exist. Cause holy cow, would I not want this model in resin or CO cast or metal? It has to be plastic, but it is, and it's so good. I got all 4 boxes that are currently available for this faction, and I put them all together, which I shouldn't have, because I have so many projects that like need attention right now. But sometimes you just gotta put it all away and work on something new. And this Malifaux crew is the something new that I really, really wanted to work on. Thierry has a special, like the faction ability is they have one group of enhancements for one phase of the game, and then they have a whole nother group of enhancements, and at some point during the battle, you get to flip it. And so you lose one set of rules, but then you gain another set of rules, and so you have to decide when is the moment you want to flip. And it becomes like a really, really interesting. Malifaux is a really, really exciting, interesting game that I've only gotten to play a couple of times, but I have multiple crews for it because the miniatures are so gorgeous and beautiful and interesting. I have the Showgirls performers. I have Nekima, the Black-Blooded, Yoko Hamasaki, and the Ki and Gong. Like, I keep getting more Malifaux crews just because they're so interesting to me and interesting to paint. And so the next one is absolutely going to be Thierry. I've been working on my non-metallic metal, and I've been getting okay at non-metallic metal. This is gonna be like the magnum opus. This is gonna be where I really learn how to do it, because every single little bit of metal on these things, I'm gonna go really, really hard. And for the elf flesh, I think I'm gonna do, like, their skin is blue, like the Avatar cat people, but literally glowing. I think that would make for a really, really interesting look, especially with like the sandy, rusty metal. These guys essentially just kind of wander the desert. And I also kind of love the idea of these weird, elegant machines and creatures wandering the desert. And then they wander into like a 1-horse town with like gunslingers. It just is silly and really, really fun to me. They've also allied themselves with one of the newer factions, or one of the new keywords for Malifaux, which is the Explorers Society. And so they can take some of the Explorer Society minis, which is really, really cool because I didn't have a good excuse to buy any of those models before. Not that I need a great excuse, but the fact that they can ally with these just gives me one more lock has been taken off of my wallet so that I can get some more Malifaux minis. Dude, they're so gorgeous and so beautiful. And it took a full day to put together like 11 minis because Malifaux, a little bit tricky. I adore that the models are made out of plastic so that they can be built and they can be these weird spindly creations, but it does take a long time because, you know, tiny, tiny little legs, tiny, tiny little arms, all of these little like banners and straps need to get just perfectly put into place, but I wouldn't have it any other way. Malifaux is really, really cool. I took a full day to put these guys together. It's gonna take a minute. It's gonna take a minute to paint these, but I am really, really excited for it. And it's a lot of stuff that I don't necessarily get to do a lot in Warhammer 40K, so I'm always looking for those new painting experiences. I bought these models from my favorite game store, Valhalla Hobby, and if you guys want to check out Valhalla Hobby, you can use the link in the description below and shop with the code EOB to get a discount. Also, speaking of Valhalla Hobby, Sean bought this from them. It is a board game from Leader Games. We're a Leader Games house in this house. We play pretty much all of Leader Games' games. They're really, really fun. Root, Ahoy, those two, but we play a lot of them. They're really, really fun, and Sean apparently knows that this game is good, so we're gonna give it a try. And if he's wrong, I'll let you guys know about it because I love making fun of Sean. And speaking of making fun of Sean, we had a game of 40K in TTS last week, and I played a new faction, a secret faction, a faction that I might be working on behind the scenes for Warhammer 40K. I played into his Thousand Sons, and I smoked him. I beat Sean and his Chaos Sorcerers, and it was glorious. And speaking of playing Warhammer 40K, 40K is in a really interesting spot right now because they're coming out with all sorts of new rules and new detachments, and it's really cool. It's like, I think I asked for this way back at the launch of 10th edition. Since the rules are all digital and in a way kind of free, they can just update and change whatever they want. And so every single faction for 40K is getting its own brand new detachment, and a detachment is the new way to add like different play styles into the game. And so they're just dropping one new detachment for everything. It's so much fun. Before anybody says anything, Sean was not playing the new Thousand Suns detachment because it does look horrendously bad. I beat him fair and square. But almost all the detachments have been really, really good. The only one that's bad is probably the Thousand Suns and the Agents of the Imperium one. The Agents of the Imperium one is kind of fun and fluffy and flavorful, but you're meant to take all 4 assassins, and then you kind of have to buy all 4 of your assassins the enhancements. So you're kind of paying like 145 to 165 points per assassin, which is still a piddly little guy who can easily be one-shotted. It's a pretty bad attachment, but everything else has been looking absolutely stellar. The Tyranid Warrior spam, which I'm really excited to give a try. The Oops All Death Guard Infantry looks really, really awesome. Scout 5 and Stealth on Death Shroud Terminators looks really, really nice. The Thousand Sun one is bad. Necrons are otherworldly good, like really, really good. Like it might need to get nerfed good. It's a vehicle detachment for an army that has some of the really, really good vehicles in the game. Like it's wild. Like Necron vehicles have invuln saves. That's almost mean to put invulnerable saves on vehicles. And Necron is like every single vehicle we've got has an invuln. Custodes look good. The Grey Knights detachment is particularly interesting to me because I do have a Grey Knights army. It's in a drawer, or it's in a box, and I'm not completely sure where the box is. I think it's that direction, but the new detachment looks really, really, really good. The Adeptus Mechanicus, who are in a rough spot. Apparently this new detachment is pretty stellar. And one thing, Games Workshop did promise this, but is fun to see, is Deathwatch back from the grave. Oh, Deathwatch. The internet cried out when Codex Imperial Agents came out and Deathwatch were seemingly rolled into that army, but rolled into it really, really badly, where almost everyone's collections were completely invalidated, except for the couple of units that are dedicated Deathwatch units like Corvus Blackstar and Deathwatch Veterans. And that's kind of its Watchmaster, but not Watchmaster Artemis, just Watchmaster. It was a sad day, but the internet, through sheer tyranny of will, got the Codex back, and it looks really, really good. It looks really fun. I really, really want to play it. If anybody has a large collection of Space Marines, I think try playing them as Deathwatch because you get to do really fun stuff, like essentially combining all Space Marines that have the same armor mark together. So you can take a squad that's like some heavy intercessors and some aggressors. You can take a squad that's Assault Marines with Jump Pack and Inceptors, which confusingly in the Codex or in the detachment are called, I think, Heavy Intercessors with Jump Pack, which is technically not a thing, but I guess they didn't want to call them Inceptors because then they didn't want people to think that they were going to have the Inceptors keyword, which would also lead to some weird interactions. But it is really, really neat. My favorite thing is the Terminators. Deathwatch Terminators are back, and they can have, in every 5-man squad, they can essentially mix and match whatever they want. And that's so cool on Terminators. You can have 5 Terminators, 3 of them with plasma blast guns, and then the last 2 guys can have Hammer and Storm Shield. That's such a weird, neat little squad that I really, really would love to take. Obviously a 5-man Terminator squad with 3 Cyclone missile launchers, 5 Storm Bolters, and then 5 Power Fists is really, really good. Like, I love me some Terminators, and Terminators who just get to take whatever they want. Bring 3 Heavy Flamers and just beg your opponent to try to charge them so that you can overwatch them. The new Deathwatch detachment does look super fun. I used to have a Deathwatch army, but I eventually sold it when I could not have 2 different Space Marine armies, because then I was building stuff and I'm like, I'm building Terminators, but I would like to bring Terminators from my Black Templar, but I also would like to bring a bunch of Terminators in my Deathwatch army. And then it just became like, well, I should just focus. I should focus on one. And it was the Black Templar, which is a good choice. But the Death Watch are super neat. And it's just rules. Like I can play with all of these rules. It's not a problem. Oh, but speaking of rules, and speaking of my love of Space Marines, there is a new detachment for vanilla Space Marines, which I was really looking forward to because I've played almost all of the detachments available to Space Marines, except like First Company Task Force, which is kind of It's supposed to be the Terminator one, but it's not the Terminator one. And so I was really looking forward to a new detachment. It's a Psycher focused detachment. I'm a Black Templar player. I'm not allowed to bring Psychers. And even when I do like use the rules for vanilla Space Marines, I would never, not in a million years, take a Psycher. Even if like rules is written, I'm allowed to do it. That's icky. I would never do it. Although it does look like a very cool detachment. If you just want it, because Psychers are super cheap in Space Marines, and so you can just essentially buy a Psycher for like every squad of your Space Marines. So I do think it looks like a really fun detachment, but I will not be playing it. Let me know in the comments below, what do you guys think of the new detachments? Have you gotten a detachment that is like everything you've ever wanted? Do you think it's just something neat to look at on the Games Workshop web store? Are there any that you're still looking forward to? I know we're getting pretty close to the end. It's kind of funny, Games Workshop is doing one a day, but there's way too many armies, so they started doing like 2 a day, sneaking one in on Saturday. Like, it's a little bit silly how many different factions there are on Warhammer 40k, but I am loving all of the new rules. It's like the game got like DLC. Actually, it's literally DLC because you have to download it. I think my favorite of the new detachments has got to be the Death Guard one. I've been working on a Death Guard army all year, a little tiny bit, and I was the index detachment for Death Guard is fine. I was trying to like kind of push and pull it into the direction I wanted to play my Death Guard. The new detachment might fit pretty darn good for the collection I have, and I'm pretty excited about it. Thanks for watching.